Before moving on to our story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Just outside a small town, a long, dark forest stretched. This forest was full of local legends. People were said to be lost, voices heard, and shadows to move. It was said that there was once a village that lived deep in the forest, but one night, for an unknown reason, this village was completely destroyed. After that night, stories began to spread about lost spirits wandering in the forest. A group of teenagers, Leo, Mia, Jake, Sarah, and Tom, had heard these scary stories and decided to venture into the woods to gather their courage. Leo was eager to find the lost village and uncover the secrets of the forest. His other friends thought it would just be fun, but there was also a fear in them. When they entered the forest, it was heavy and sultry dark. The trees were so tight that sunlight could pass through poorly, and the shadows that enveloped the forest created a deep uneasiness. As the group descended into the depths, the silence of the forest became more and more intense. In a place where the voices disappear, a sense of loneliness began to settle over them. Leo felt his heart beating fast. He found the courage to walk with his friends, but his fears grew inside him. Just then, the sound of a branch breaking was heard. Everyone flinched. Leo believed that the sound was coming from the dark corners of the forest. There was curiosity in him, but there was also fear. After a while, the group stopped next to an old tree that hung down to the ground. Leo was eager to delve further into the forest, but his friends were getting scared. The weather suddenly turned cold, and Leo hesitated. There was a feeling that something wasn't right. At that moment, a scream sounded from the depths of the forest. The voice sounded like a familiar one and echoed terribly. The young people decided to follow the sound. They walked quickly, but the sound was getting farther and farther away each time. As they plunged deeper into the forest, they felt lost souls approaching them. As they followed the sound, they saw the inscription "Don't enter here" on an old stone laid on the ground. Leo believed that this inscription came from the spirits of the village, while the others, frightened, wanted to return. However, Leo did not want to miss this opportunity. Underneath the inscription, he found a door covered with moss. When he opened the door, he felt a stream of cold air coming in. His friends tried to pull him back, but Leo was determined to get in. There was a dark tunnel behind the door. When Leo walked in, everything went quiet. The others were waiting outside, but inside, Leo was left alone. At the end of the tunnel, he found the ruins of the village. However, this was not the place he expected. Everything was in ruins, and the memories of the village bore the traces of an abandoned past. Leo sat down in the middle of the village, next to an old tree. The tree seemed to be a part of the life of the village. Suddenly, vague shadows began to appear around Leo. The shadows seemed to be the spirits of the people in the village. Frightened, Leo wanted to turn back, but the tunnel was starting to close. His friends were outside, waiting for the door to open. The voice that Leo shouted in fear could not reach the world outside. He disappeared into the depths of the forest. His friends decided to go inside in search of Leo, but even when the tunnel opened, they were met with an awkward silence that told them that Leo had disappeared. The silence of the forest carried the memory of a lost soul. The group never had the courage to return to the woods. But Leo was lost forever in the depths of the dark forest. Outside, the town's residents began to worry as dusk fell. Families began to wander around the forest in search of the missing teenagers. As the night progressed, sadness and despair filled the air. After Leo's friends also disappeared, no one heard from them. The forest continued to keep its deep secrets. As the night progressed, the inhabitants of the town went in search of not only the young people, but also the dark secrets of the forest. Elders around the forest began to tell stories of those who had been lost in the forest in the past. These stories frightened the town's young people even more. Everyone knew that lost souls roamed the depths of the forest, but no one took them seriously. The forest was filled with memories of people who had disappeared, and every lost soul seemed to stay there forever. The night of Leo's disappearance has become part of the village's past. Now the legends of what happened in the forest that night began to spread, whispering one by one. The townspeople gathered to comb the place where the young people had disappeared. But they were afraid to go deep into the forest. Everyone thought of coming together and taking bold action to track down the disappeared. However, As the night progressed, the darkness of the forest deepened, and a fear grew in everyone. The air of the forest was getting heavier, as if the lost souls were wandering around as if to take revenge on them. Gradually, everyone began to feel that the forest was looking at them with hostility. At that time, Leo's best friend, Mia, claimed to hear Leo's voice. "Leo, I'm here," he shouted and ran into the woods. Her other friends tried to stop her, but Mia was determined. He decided to go into the forest. His eyes were full of fear, but the hope within him could not turn him back. When he walked in, his heart was racing. He followed Leo's voice, but it was fading further and further away. As he moved deeper into the forest, the darkness around him grew thicker, suffocating him. As Mia dived into the forest, the sights she saw became even more eerie. Uncertain shadows seemed to move among the trees. He paused for a moment and tried to listen to his surroundings. The sounds of the forest sounded like a melody he had never heard before. However, this melody filled his heart with fear. His eyes noticed that something was moving in the shadows. The beating of his heart quickened. It was as if the forest itself was foretelling him of an approaching danger. Mia continued to search for Leo deep in the forest. Suddenly, he felt a cold wind. When he turned around, a voice from the depths of darkness was calling to him. Mia ... help. At that moment, his fear and curiosity merged. That voice belonged to Leo. For a moment, he didn't know what to do, but the courage within him guided him. He started running in the direction of the sound. However, the depths of the forest threw more obstacles at him with each step. Trees blocked his path, as if to stop him. When Mia finally reached the place where Leo's voice was coming from, she found a terrifying sight in front of her. Leo was seated on an old stone, and vague shadows appeared around him. "Mia, I'm here, help," but Mia hesitated to approach him. There was fear and despair in Leo's eyes. The shadows around him circled as if to protect him. Mia said, "Leo, what happened?" he exclaimed. Leo pointed his finger helplessly at the shadows. "They ... spirits ... they won't let me stay here." As Mia ran towards Leo's side, the voices from the depths of the forest became louder and louder. When he felt a vague movement behind him, his heart racing. Frightened, she held Leo's hand tightly and together tried to escape the darkness of the forest. However, the tunnel was closing, as if he didn't want to throw them out. Mia and Leo tried to turn around and escape, but darkness surrounded them. Leo's eyes sparkled with fear. "Mia, we need to get out of here," he whispered. Amid the whispering voices of souls lost in the depths of the forest, they both ran in panic. They wanted to make their way to the gate where their friends were waiting for them, but the paths of the forest were constantly changing. Finally, Mia and Leo paused for a moment. Before their eyes, they were on the verge of disappearing further into the darkness. "They need to help us," Mia said. "They, too, were once lost," Leo said. "But how? They have nothing to do with us." The shadows in the forest slowly approached them, as if listening to their souls. Mia took a deep breath and plucked up the courage. "We have to understand them. Maybe they will leave us." Mia decided to face her deepest fears. "We're listening. What do you want us?" he exclaimed. The dark shadows paused for a moment, as if his words had created an echo. Leo stood next to Mia, admiring her courage. Suddenly, a light shone from the depths of the forest. Shadows began to gravitate towards this light. Leo and Mia headed in, believing that this light would help them. At that moment, a melody began to rise from the depths of the forest. Mia was mesmerized by the beauty of the melody. The shadows seemed to be dancing to the effect of the music. Leo and Mia hugged each other tighter, moving towards the source of the melody. The light was slowly guiding them towards a safe area. When they took a few more steps, a door opened that had disappeared behind the darkness of the forest. When they walked through the door, they took a deep breath and walked out. They were now in a safe area in front of the dark forest. Their friends were anxiously waiting for them. As Mia and Leo tried to describe the horror they experienced, the whispering voices of souls lost in the depths of the forest receded. The secrets of the dark forest would always remain a mystery, and would not be known. However, the time they spent in the woods that night had affected their spirits forever. But when Mia went to safety with Leo, her fear grew even greater. Those dark moments in the woods were constantly echoing in his mind. Frightened and depressed, he felt that the influence of the forest was above him. As her friends gathered around her, there was a deep emptiness in Mia's eyes. Leo looked at her and asked, "Mia, are you okay?" But Mia couldn't answer. His experiences in the darkness of the forest had affected him deeply. As the days passed, Mia struggled to shake off the fear within her. Although Leo and his other friends tried to come to terms with what they had experienced, everything was more difficult for Mia. The forest not only gave him a terrifying experience, but also reminded him of memories of lost souls. Over time, Mia began to feel more and more lonely and restless day by day. Suddenly, he began to see that dark forest in his dreams every night. Leo and his other friends who got lost there. One evening, Mia finally couldn't take it anymore and told her parents what had happened. This made him even weaker in the eyes of his family. They immediately contacted a specialist, and Mia began treatment to maintain her sanity. In each session, he tried to get to the root of the fear within him, but the traces of that dark forest remained in his mind. While his dreams were bothering him, he was also trying to come to terms with the experience. The course of treatment was long and challenging. However, Mia was determined to finally come to terms with what she had experienced and make peace with her past. Confronting the dark secrets of the forest was necessary for him to transition into a new period of his life. One day, when his soul felt as if he had been liberated, he remembered Leo and thanked him for the memories he had experienced. This part of his life had been a lesson for him. Facing his fears is the best way to overcome the dark moments. When the town's residents heard about Mia's experiences, they began to be even more attentive around the forest. Now the darkness of the forest represented not only stories of lost souls, but also a symbol of courage and acceptance. Although Mia was scarred by the hardships she had experienced, she had made the dark forest a part of her life rather than a danger. And the stories of the forest have remained a warning and inspiration for future generations.